والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداه. أما بعد. So last week we spoke about the qira'at, and we were supposed to talk today about the maqamat. Anybody knows what the maqamats are? Or heard the lecture about the maqamat? Yes, for the locations? No, it's more to do with the. I don't want to say singing, because this is the debate that is going on when we think about the maqamat. I found a video a few years ago, about probably 4 or 5 years ago, that was very interesting. So I forwarded it to, I don't usually forward much, but because I found it interesting, so I forwarded it to my Tajweed group. And one of the brothers replied and said something about if I know what the scholars said about this. I told him, I just thought it was interesting. It doesn't mean that I agree with it or disagree with it. It's like what you learn at university. Not all the stuff that you are taught at university you agree with, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we don't agree with, especially as Muslims, right? So when it comes to the maqamat, what happened is that a few years ago, these TV channels, probably Arabic-speaking channels, satellite TV channels, they started having these Quran competitions where they were using these maqamat, right? And a lot of scholars started talking about it, that what they are doing in these competitions is wrong. It has nothing to do with Islam or the Quran. And there was this big debate about it. Of course, I was not aware of what was going on in the Muslim countries and these channels, right? I don't watch those channels anyways. So it was like a big deal. The TV channels, I mean, they are there to make money, right? I mean, it's whether they are like in a Muslim country or here. So whatever brings more money, I mean, they would do it. And of course, since a lot of people in the Muslim countries, they are coming back to the Quran. So they wanted to do something that has to do with the Quran, plus something that will interest the greatest number of people. So they came up with this idea. So people who learn how to sing or learn music, they are taught these maqamat, whether it is in the Muslim world or otherwise. This is what they are taught, right? It's like it has more to do with the music than it has to do with the Quran. But really, when you look at the evidences of the group of people that are opposed to it and the group of people that agree with it, there is always somebody who will convince you. If you hear this group, they will convince you. If you hear the other group, they will also convince you, right? So in everything, there is a middle path, right? There is always a middle path. One of the programs, Sheikh Saad al-Ghamidi called in to the program. Sheikh Saad al-Ghamidi, as you probably all familiar with, is one who recorded the Quran many years ago, and he is, according to many sources, he's the bestseller in terms of recording. He was top of the chart in terms of how many recordings they sold for him. And he's somebody who is really gifted. You can tell from hearing him. I heard him probably at the end of the 90s, when he was not very popular. And this was something incredible. It's like an incredible voice. So he called into the program and he said, because people they were assuming that he probably learned the maqamat, right? And there's a lot of reciters who went through learning the maqamat before they became famous. right? And he testified that whatever method he used in reciting was, just like that. I mean, he didn't have to learn the maqamat to be reciting the way he recites, right? It's just a gift. And this is what I believe the Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ used to do. I mean, this is something that either they have it or they don't, right? It's like a gift. Somebody would say that so-and-so has a good voice or a nice voice. Is he referring just to the voice, or is he referring to the way the person recites? I personally think that it's not only the voice, because a person may have the nicest voice, but he may not be able to recite the Quran properly. As soon as he starts reciting the Quran, if he never learned how to recite it with Tajweed, then it's going to be the ugliest thing, right? It's going to be the worst thing that you heard in your life. So it doesn't only have to do with the voice, it also has to do with the way you recite it. And of course, the way you recite it is also connected to the meanings, right? The example I had a while back is the simple example is punctuations, right? Like we have in English, punctuations. If we write a sentence like this, let's eat. We say, let's eat, son, right? We understand what it means. He's calling his son so that we can eat. But if we remove this comma here, that means we are not going to stop at all. Let's eat, son, right? It has a different meaning, right? It has a different meaning. So, of course, when we talk about the maqamat, or the way we should put the tones into these words, we have to be able to understand the meaning before we are able to inject these tones into these words. Let me show you the first video, and then I will tell you what it means. That will break the wudu, like we were talking about the wudu last time. So that will break the wudu. This video, you see, with sound and video, without a lot of words, right? They didn't write a lot of words in this video, except this last one. It is very powerful, right? With sound and video, even with sound by itself, with the voice, it is a very powerful thing. Now, if you combine this with words that are very powerful, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Inna min al-bayani la sihha." Inna min al-bayani la sihha. That with some words have the power of, it's like magic, right? Let alone when you inject a melody into it, you make it sound nice. And I believe that people of the past used to sing their poetry. They used to sing it. Even the poetry that has been written to collect the whatever rulings, fiqh rulings or aqidah rulings, they were basically recited. And the difference between just reading it and reciting it is that it sticks into the memory better. And this is probably one of the reasons we are required to recite the Quran. It is much easier to remember something that you recited compared to something that you read. Do you agree? Have you tried it? Yeah, I mean, for the Quran, it's pretty obvious that it's very easy to remember the rest of the ayah because it flows, right? This is how you memorized it. But if you just read it without reciting it, then it is very difficult. And this is a method that they use in advertising, right? Especially if you listen to the radio and they are advertising for, let's say, a company, and they would say the phone number, they would sing it so that you remember it. I remember some phone numbers from the radio, right? I don't even need, right? 1-800 something. I don't remember it now, but I'm pretty sure if I concentrate enough, I will remember that number because it is said in a way that will make you remember it. Of course, when it comes to reciting or when it comes to the maqamat, or if we can say singing the Quran, everyone has his own ability, a certain ability. As we said a couple of weeks ago, if you are trying to imitate a reciter, it's preferred that you imitate somebody who has a voice similar to yours. Otherwise, you will be in trouble, right? You will maybe hurt your voice. You will not sound as good. I remember this brother who used to, sometimes he was asked to lead the Taraweeh in one of the masajid, and people didn't like him very much. So they only call him when they are stuck. So if you are stuck, call him, because we don't have any option. But if we have options, then they said, no way. And this is what he was doing. He was trying to imitate someone that's out of his range. So it just sounded, it sounded horrible. It didn't sound nice. So imitating somebody who is within your range is a good idea. Now we talked about something called al-jawab and al-qarar. Al-qarar is a low pitch, and al-jawab is a high pitch. And of course, in the middle, they kind of overlap, right? You have very high pitch, and you have a low pitch on the bottom, and you have stuff in between, right? So a person, if he's able to switch between a low pitch and high pitch, of course, within his ability. So let's say a person is not able to go really, really low pitch. He can go low instead of very low, right? And he can go high instead of very high, right? So if he's able to switch between this and that while he's reciting, then it will be easier on his voice and easier on the people who are listening to him, right? An example, and I will try to do this, I'm not sure if I will succeed. An example of the qarar is if somebody starts reciting like this. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. See, I'm already suffering, right? This is al-qarar. And the jawab is probably out of my range to try to do it. But I always remember this brother who used to sometimes lead the salat. And the way he was reciting, maybe it was a high pitch, but the way he was ending the Fatiha was kind of not very, you don't feel right. He was going something like this. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. It's like he left you with a question. Not only that it was like a high pitch, but it's like he's like, you feel like it's unfinished. and you are tempted to say Ameen, it's like you continue with that. Usually the Ameen follows the tone of the Imam. Have you noticed that? It follows the tone of the Imam. So however the Imam is saying the end of the surah, then you will say Ameen accordingly. But when this brother was doing it, it's kind of, even for the Ma'mun to say Ameen is difficult. Right? It's a difficult situation. Now, of course, we are not even touching the surface of the Maqaamaat, but this is just to give you an idea of what it is and the debate surrounding it. Right? You will hear a lot of scholars prohibiting learning the Maqaamaat because they said this is something that is specific to singing, whether it is with instrument or without. And the others, they said, the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard, I believe, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he told him, لَقَدْ أُوتِيتَ مِزْمَارًا مِنْ مَزَامِيرِ آلِ دَاوُدَ. And here he referred to a musical instrument, right? He could have said many other things, but instead he referred to a musical instrument. And now he will leave you wonder, how did he recite? How were they reciting? Certainly they were reciting in a very nice voice, right? And with a very nice tone. Like the other story was, I believe, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, if I'm not wrong, that the Prophet heard him. And of course, Abu Musa didn't know that the Prophet was listening to him. And the next day he told him that what I listened to yesterday was nice. He said, if I knew you were listening, لَحَبَّرْتُهُ تَحْبِيرًا. It means I would have made it even better, right? That means it shows that he had the ability, right? And of course, the ability here is to do something different, something better, and something different. How different can you make it when you are reciting, right? I mean, if he was just reading, I mean, how different can it be? But because he was reciting, so he can make it different, right? He can make it nicer. Now, the people who really what happened in this day and age, a lot of people who, I don't want to say converted to Islam, but a lot of people who came back to Islam, right? They become more practicing, which is a good thing. Maybe they were doing something, maybe they were not praying, they were not following, properly. And then they became practicing, whether it is in the Muslim world or here. So a lot of these people, they used to listen to music, right? So now, when a person comes and listen to somebody that is doing something a little bit similar to singing, right? He's reciting the Quran, so it's a form of singing. So now, what does he do? His mind automatically starts to compare. Now, what are we comparing? We're comparing to somebody who is like a professional singer with the high-tech audio and sound systems, to somebody in a masjid where the sound is, sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't, where sometimes you hear, sometimes you don't, and with like an average voice. So it's very hard to compare. You cannot compare it. And this is a true story. Like a brother, this is like not very far from us. He told me, and I didn't ask him, but he started telling me this. He said, I used to listen to music, and I tell you the truth, I don't enjoy this. Whoever was reciting that day, he said, I don't enjoy it because I know this stuff, right? The balance that he's using to weigh this, right, is high tech. So he said, it's very rare that I enjoy the recitation of somebody because of this. And this is true. This is what I personally believe. Somebody who had the previous experience with like something that is this high of a quality, it's very difficult for him to find somebody whose recitation is decent. That's why these satellite TVs, they succeeded in promoting these kind of programs, right? But then people started getting addicted to this. And I'm talking here about most of these people, they had a background in music, right? They used to listen to a lot of music. So you will see in the next video what happened. This is just an example. Did you see this video before? Anybody saw this? This one? This particular one? Right. Let's see the next one if you saw it or not.
رجل يعني يبدو أنه متأثر تأثرا شديدا بالمقامات.
All right, I will need to translate this. This guy is pretty popular. He's an Egyptian imam, and he said one day he was leading the salah, obviously Maghrib or Isha or Fajr, and he said behind me was somebody who was kind of into this Maqaamaat business. He was addicted to the Maqaamaat. So you will see what happened.
إلى درجة أنه لا يسمع شيئا إلا ويقلد مثله كالببغاء لكن في المقامات. حتى في الصلاة، يعني العجيب أن هذا حتى في الصلاة. فأنا وقفت وبدأت أقرأ.
Sorry. So he stood up for the salah and he started reciting. And you will see what the other person behind him was doing while he was reciting.
يبدو متأثرا إلى درجة أنه لا يسمع شيئا إلا ويقلد مثله كالببغاء لكن في المقامات. حتى في الصلاة، يعني العجيب أن هذا حتى في الصلاة. فأنا وقفت وبدأت أقرأ الحمد لله رب العالمين وإذا من خلفي يقول
That was the guy behind him. And this is, imagine, this is during Salah. And you notice here that the Sheikh is one of the, I think he's one of the winners of the competition of, you see how beautifully he recites. And now he's trying to get rid of this person by switching from one type of maqam to another. Right? And this gives you an idea of what are the different maqamat here.
أنا تعجبت جدا وتوقفت قليلا بعد وداة الآية الأولى. خشيت الناس يقولوا نسي الفاتحة. الرحمن الرحيم.
So he stopped after the first ayah and he thought, now people they're going to say that I forgot the ayah. So now he's changed to something else, to something different, but the guy behind him, he also managed to follow that tune.
أنا قلت بقى مش هينفع. حاولت إن أنا أغير المقام لعله ما يستطيع إنه يعني يفعل غير هذا. مالك يوم الدين. قلت أعلو بالصوت تماما وأحاول إن يعني آتي بأعلى جواب عندي حتى أسكتها.
Now this is the jawab I was talking about, which is the high pitch. So he's trying to use a high pitch so that the other guy is not able to do the same.
إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. والله وظل هكذا.
And this continued on until the end. Until he was ready to make ruku', and this is what happened when he made ruku'. Did you see this before? You saw it. This shows how addicted a person could be to the maqamat. Right? So it is true in a way. It is one extreme that people now, instead of paying attention to the wordings, to the words that are being recited, they are basically connected to the tone, right? Connected to the maqam, not to the words. To this point, this is like an extreme point, an extreme case. But otherwise, if it is something natural, like Sheikh Saad Al-Ghamidi said in his comment, and I was happy to hear him say this, and other people said it as well. If it is something natural, right, then even though it may fall into the category of maqamat, a person, a singer may say that you are reciting in this or that manner, but if you are doing it naturally, then it doesn't matter if it falls in that category or not, right? And this is what Sheikh Saad Al-Ghamidi in summary said in his response, is that he recites naturally. People might claim that he's reciting sometime with this maqam or the other maqam, but it was not intentionally, and he doesn't know about the maqamat, and he didn't learn them in the first place. But I found it interesting to see how these people teach the maqamat, and there was like an interesting video that I could send you. It is in Arabic. It's a long one. It's probably 7, 8, 9 hours worth of stuff, and it includes. I think this guy was with them as a student, and other very gifted people in the audience. It was interesting to hear them recite, right? Whether you agree with what they are doing in terms of maqamat, you agree with teaching this stuff or not, that's beside the point, right? The point is that to watch this video, it's very interesting to see how these people control this, maqamat business. And one person would recite, and then the sheikh would say, "This is level number 3 of this and that." I mean, it's for me, it's I can tell you if it sounds good or not. May be able to tell you that, but to put it on a scale, that's obviously beyond me. But it was an interesting video. So this is the story that I had for the maqamat. Hopefully, it makes sense, or a little bit of sense. You will find what I noticed personally, that in every country or area, you would find people reciting in a certain way, whether it is the Quran or their singers. They would recite in a certain tone, right? Did you notice this? Like people who come from, let's say, Saudi Arabia or something, they would recite in a certain way. People who come from Egypt, people from Africa, they would recite and they would also sing with something very similar to what they recite. You can sometimes tell where the person is from or the area is from by listening to the way he recites or the way he sings, right? I don't listen to music myself, but this is what I noticed. I don't know if you noticed something similar or not. Even in the way they speak, right? Let's assume that they speak both the same language. Let's say they both speak Arabic language. You would find differences, even if they are speaking, let's say they are speaking the standard classical Arabic. Both of them, they are speaking the standard classical Arabic. You would find that in the way they speak, there is a hint of where they come from, even though they are speaking the same thing. But there is a hint of the area that they came from. Some people, even when they speak, they kind of sing, right? I don't know if you hear, even in English, you hear people from Scotland or Irish people. It's like they are singing the words, or even in other areas. I'm interested in listening to these people. Sometimes it's fun to listen to them speak, right? We sometimes make fun of them in a good way, right? Because they are kind of singing the words, right? Brother Hanif asked a question last week about ikhtilas, right? Ikhtilas. We were talking about the word ta'manna in Surah Yusuf. And that's the only word in this qira'ah that has the ishmam. We talked about the ishmam. We said it's basically rounding the lips, perking the lips when you read the word. It's because the originally it was la ta'manuna, right? So you have two noons, la ta'ma, nu, na, and the two noons were merged together to make it easier to pronounce, and that's why the perking of the lips stayed, but the dhamma or the noon, the first noon, was dropped, and this is called ishmam. When you say ta'man na, right? When you do this perking of the lips, the ikhtilas is basically pronouncing quickly the first noon, quickly and softly. Ikhtilas means what does the word ikhtilas means? That stealing?
Sneaking.
Yeah, maybe stealing something in a sneaky way. Right? We usually hear this word when you say اختلس أموال الدولة. That means he took the money of the country and left. Right? So basically, he taken a little bit of the of this first noon. So you are not pronouncing a full noon. We're talking about the first noon, which is a noon that has a dhamma. So instead of saying ta'manuna, we are saying ta'manuna. So we are going really, really fast on the first noon. So it's not a full noon. So this is what the ikhtilas means. And in the way I recite, if you remember the table that I showed last week, the way I recite, I only recite it with the ishmam. And the Shatibiyya, they have both options, the ishmam and the ikhtilas. The ishmam is when you perk your lips and you don't pronounce the first noon. And the ikhtilas is when you pronounce it softly and quickly. So you take some of it out, basically. All right? So we are reading today from Surah Al-Anfal, ayah number 60.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخير ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين.
Why did you repeat it, Brother Ahmed?
The first ain I felt.
That's what I felt too. I was just thinking about it. So we mentioned in the past that when you have many fathas coming together, you have to be really, really slow. The second one was better, but try it like slower.
يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. رضا أحمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط خيل ترهبون به عدو
ومن رباط
خيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم. وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم. يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين
ومن اتبعك
من المؤمنين. يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا
قوم لا
قوم لا يفقهون
قوم لا يفقهون قوم.
قوم لا يفقهون.
How long do you have to make this? What's this rule here? قوم لا.
عايز طبعا بغنى
So how long do you have to make it?
تحت.
Do you agree with him? Brother Sajjad, do you agree with him?
No?
So what's the rule?
I think it's just there's one contact, I guess.
What's the name of the rule? Do you remember?
But
You don't remember, Brother Muhammad? You don't remember? But you agree with Brother Sajjad?
I'm not sure where it was read.
All right. Anybody else wants to help? Without idgham, without ghunna, without. So without means that it's only one haraka. Yeah. So it's not, and this was the common mistake we said. Qawmulla, this is a common mistake. It's qawmulla, without making it too long.
بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون.
Shorter.
قوم لا يفقهون.
And when you say qawmun, make sure you are saying it with a fatha. It's like you are saying qawmun. You are saying qaw instead of qa.
بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون.
That's better.
الآن خفف
الآن.
الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن
وعلم
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 أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم مئة صابرة يغلبوا مئتين وإن يكن منكم ألف يغلبوا ألفين بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. Brother Hanif.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من
ما استطعتم. Say again.
وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من
And don't stop until I stop you.
وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون وإن يكن منكم مئة يغلبوا ألفا من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم مئة صابرة يغلبوا مئتين وإن يكن منكم ألف يغلبوا ألفين بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. Brother Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم مئة صابرة يغلبوا 200 فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
The word mi'atun, why didn't we pronounce the alif?
Symbol on it, which I'm not sure exactly, I just know it means it's not pronounced.
Alright, Jazakallah khair. Brother Boy. It's not an original alif. All right. All right, it's not original. Anybody else? Brother Hanif? No comment? There is a symbol on it.
That shows that we should not pronounce it in any case.
All right, we should not pronounce it in any case. But is it original or not? It is, on the contrary, it is an original. It is the original. This is how the original wrote the word, with an actual alif. Because this was a normal size alif, if I may say. It's a normal size alif, except that they didn't pronounce it. This is how they used to write it, but they didn't pronounce it. Right? That's why for us to know that we shouldn't pronounce it, they had to put something on it. They put a 0 on it for us, because for us, we don't know if we should pronounce it or not. So to help us out, they put a 0. But people back then, they knew how to write it. They wrote it with the alif, but they knew that this alif is not pronounced. It's a silent alif. Right? But it's original, on the contrary.
It's alif, not hamza.
It is an alif.
So, like, for alif, we should have a fatha before it.
Well, in this case, it's not pronounced. So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if it was pronounced, then we will have a fatha before it. Yeah, that's true. But you will find in the Arabic-speaking countries, sometimes people would say ma'atun. I don't know if you heard this before or not. And Sheikh Ayman Suwaid, who is a scholar of the Tajweed, he said there's no such thing as ma'atun. There's no such thing. They never, people back then, they never said this. Only people nowadays, they are trying to pronounce the alif. And of course, to pronounce it, you have to put a fatha before it. Otherwise, you won't be able to. All right.
To reiterate what you said from my Arabic teacher, Arabic language teacher, it said in Arabic, as you were saying, in Arabic, for Arabic-speaking people, there is no such a word called ma'a. Although it's written, as you said, with the alif, but it's pronounced. The Arab native speakers, they read it mi'a.
But did you hear people saying ma'a?
Yeah, and worse, even worse, you will see in some of the notes, the main, they have fatha on the mim.
Yeah, maybe
and this is a big mistake.
Yeah.
So in the Arabic languages, of course from the Quran also, there is no such a word which is no word which is ma'a.
Jazakallah khair.
And written like this.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, it's true that I have a slight recollection of this money thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's true. Jazakallah khair. Brother Mustafa?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم
ترهبون. ترهبون. Repeat from ترهبون.
ترهبون به.
The ra is not strong enough.
ترهبون.
Yeah. Did you notice this, brothers? All right. ترهبون.
ترهبون.
I guess in the media they talk about this word a lot, and they say it with a soft ra.
وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم. يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين. يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين. يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. تفضل سجاد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون. وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم. وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم. إنه عزيز حكيم. يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين. يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم وإن يكن منكم مئة صابرة يغلبوا مئتين وإن يكن منكم ألف يغلبوا ألفين بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. Brother Abu Yahya.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم وآخرين
You knew what the problem was.
وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء
وما تنفقوا
من شيء يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون.
في سبيل الله, or did you say في سبيل الله? Did he say في سبيل الله? He didn't.
وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون. وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم.
إنه
هو السميع العليم.
Look at the mushaf. Read it from the mushaf.
إنه هو السميع العليم.
There's no qalqala. سميع العليم, not سميع العليم.
إنه هو السميع العليم.
Don't stop. Don't stop. I mean.
وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم.
You're still doing this qalqala of the lam. You're doing سميع سميع.
إنه هو السميع العليم.
That's better, right?
وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم. يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين. يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون. الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين.
جزاك الله خير. وأعدوا لهم ما استطعتم من قوة ومن رباط الخيل ترهبون به عدو الله وعدوكم وآخرين من دونهم لا تعلمونهم الله يعلمهم وما تنفقوا من شيء في سبيل الله يوفى إليكم وأنتم لا تظلمون وإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله إنه هو السميع العليم وإن يريدوا أن يخدعوك فإن حسبك الله هو الذي أيدك بنصره وبالمؤمنين وألف بين قلوبهم لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بين قلوبهم ولكن الله ألف بينهم إنه عزيز حكيم يا أيها النبي حسبك الله ومن اتبعك من المؤمنين يا أيها النبي حرض المؤمنين على القتال إن يكن منكم 20 صابرون يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 100 يغلبوا 1000 من الذين كفروا بأنهم قوم لا يفقهون الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا فإن يكن منكم 100 صابرة يغلبوا 200 وإن يكن منكم 1000 يغلبوا 2000 بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. All right, next week inshallah we'll talk about the nabra or the emphasis and try to read this what we read today, Anfal, again at home inshallah, 60 to 66, reversed homework, Anfal 60 to 66. All right, subhanakallah wa hamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.